talking about internet governance in general, some history, context, and principles. And I just want to begin by thanking Satish and Amrita for inviting me here. And I really think this is great to see such eager students here. So a bit about who am I and what am I doing here? And I hope you can see the slides because I'm trying to rely on the slides a bit for explaining certain things. So I'm a professor at the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta in the USA. I founded the Internet Governance Project back in 2004. And I'm also here as a representative of the non-commercial users constituency. In fact, I have some brochures explaining what that is in the back of the room, and I'll pull them out before you go and let you take one if you want. The non-commercial users constituency is part of the ICANN, let's say, stakeholder representational scheme. Another thing I want to tell you is that I'm a college professor, so to me this is a class, right? And that means that I want you, this is not a speech, this is a class. So anytime during the talk, which you don't understand something or you have a question, I want you to just shoot up your hand and ask it. Hopefully it will not be a long speech that you're giving, but it will be something that will, if you have a question in your mind, ask it and we'll go on. So let's begin. We're talking about internet governance. What is it that we are talking about governing? And I think this is one of the fundamental questions that I think I can help you with, because I'm going to be giving you a narrower definition of internet governance than most of you may be used to. Internet is not the entire communications and media landscape. It starts with the technology, and in particular, Internet is a variety of what we call packet switching technology. All right? And that was a new form of data communication that started developing in the 1960s. And you can see here is a very early picture of the ARPANET, which is the precursor of the Internet. How many of you have heard of the ARPANET? Oh, wow. So how many of you know what ARPA is? What is ARPA?
Maybe in the Ministry of the American Government.
We don't have ministries, we have departments, but you're pretty much on the right track. It's the Advanced Research Projects Administration of the Department of Defense, rather than the Ministry of Defense. I just have to be pedantic and make that point for you. So, the ARPANET, as you can see, it's connected to the MILNet, it's connected to satellite networks, it's the NSF backbone. Now this is kind of fundamental to what the Internet is. The Internet is not a medium or a system by itself. It is about internetworking. It is about connecting and making compatible a whole bunch of different networks that are independently run. The Internet is just software. It is not the physical layer. So when you do internet governance, you're not necessarily really governing the physical layer. That's a whole different part of the policy landscape. And what makes internet governance different and complicated is the fact that you have this combination of unification and fragmentation. You have this protocol which makes everything interoperate, but you also have a bunch of independently run networks that can make their own decisions about what should happen and what should not happen within their domain. So, and again, when you're talking about internet governance, you're not so much talking about how each of those individual networks does things, although you can try to be much more authoritarian and try to control all that. But if you're really talking about the internet, you're talking about the process through which these different networks are made compatible and are interconnected. So what are the resources and what are the mechanisms by which we maintain this compatibility? Well, here's a little graph of the domain name space. How many of you have heard of the domain? No, that's a joke. So what are the resources that enable interconnection, interoperability? Basically, there's three of them. There's numbers, protocols, and names. By numbers, we're referring to Internet Protocol addresses, and that is what makes the packets know where to go. ASNs, autonomous system numbers, if you recall that little graph I showed you, each of the separate networks that are connected by the internet has a number, and that number helps with the routing of packets as much as the Internet Protocol address. And you have domains, the naming system, which of course is organized in a hierarchy, and at the top of this hierarchy you have a root, which is what is globally governed through, at the current time, through ICANN. So those are the resources, and how is that related to policy? Well, Dr. Govind did a very good job of explaining to you why those resources have to be unique. Okay, if you're going to have a domain name, and you're going to use it to name your domain, it has to be globally unique. And global uniqueness requires some basic governance mechanisms. Number one, a registry, a commonly accepted registry where everybody knows what character strings have been assigned to what operating group or what entity. So you have to maintain uniqueness and exclusivity, otherwise you have confused packets and confused connectivity. But then you get into some higher order forms of policy making based on these technical decisions, such as scarcity. So a good example of scarcity is when you're talking about IP version 4 addresses, we are running out of them, right? It used to be that we just gave them out to people, and you went to your RIR and you said, here's what I need, and they said, oh, we'll take a bunch out of our free pool and give them to you. And you might pay some fees for that, but fundamentally they were not worried very much about scarcity. Well, suddenly we became worried about scarcity. Really, as early as the early 1990s, we became worried about scarcity. And that meant that the resource policy for allocating and assigning numbers had to think about conservation. Not only the conservation of the number space, but also the routing tables had conservation pressures. If the routing tables get too big, routing doesn't work properly because the routers can't handle the size of the routing table. I'm assuming you all know what a routing table is, and nobody's shooting up their hand asking me a question, so this is clearly a very technically smart group. Externalities. How many of you know what an externality is? It's a concept from political economy or law and economics. What is an externality? Back in the back.
A negative effect of something, some economic activity that you've done. So mostly it is talking in terms of pollution that an industrial company can cause. Okay, so pollution is an example of an externality. You and I make a transaction, and you're a factory, I buy a chair from you, but you pollute, and there are people who are imposed costs on those people who are not parties to our transaction, so it's called an externality. Could be a positive externality. You could invest thousands of dollars in your house, put pretty plants all over it, make it look beautiful, and everybody's property values around you goes up because of your investment decision. That's also a positive externality. So there are negative externalities in various kinds of internet governance activities, in particular with routing. For example, if I send a lot of mistaken routes into the system, I can make your packets go in the wrong direction. So there may be ways of governing those kinds of things. And finally, at the highest level of internet governance and technical resources, we have issues about rights. And that is when people have claims based on some kind of norm unrelated to the technical system, that they should own something or they should control something. So a good example of that are the domain name conflicts, where you want to register, let's say, Amazon.
And then the government of Latin America says, you can't have Amazon, that's the name of our region and our territory, and we should control that. And you say, but it's a trademark, I should control it. And you have a conflict about rights. And we'll talk more about those as we go on. But this is just an example of how what seems like a very technical matter of assigning resources to enable interconnectivity raises a number of policy issues. So we've talked about what is governed. Now let's talk about who does it, who governs. Well, in the old days, this was pretty simple. We had a bunch of technical people who were a fairly tight community that were developing essentially a research network. How many of you recognize two of the people in this because they're still around? There's Vince Cerf, and who's that other guy? Steve Crocker, who's now the chairman of the board of ICANN, who you'll probably see if you go to the ICANN meeting. So here they were, you know, they're all in Southern California, and this picture was probably taken in the 70s or 80s. And they're still around, and they're still making a lot of decisions about the internet, but things have changed quite a bit. But this was the attitude among the technical community. We reject kings, presidents, and voting. We believe in rough consensus and running code. So, are they anti-democratic? They're not for president, they're not for voting. Is this anti-democratic?
No.
What?
No.
Why not?
Because they include more broader communities to make this rough consensus.
Okay, so the consensus is presumably open and inclusive among the people involved, although this was a very small group in 1992. But the other key element there is running code. What they're saying is, what we care about is what are you doing works or not. Okay, it's not about whether the group that produced it was perfectly representative of society. I mean, that may be nice, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter whether you had a perfectly representative group that had representatives from every country in the world in perfect gender balance. It doesn't work, so it's no good, okay? That's what they cared about back then. Now, another part of the historical context here is that the internet came into being at a time when we were undergoing another communications revolution that was, in some ways, equally, if not more important than the internet itself, and it paved the way. You could not have had the internet without the liberalization of telecommunications. So what happened from 1980s to 2000, we had a world in the 70s, and actually going all the way back to basically 1920, we had a world of national telephone monopolies. And in Europe and most of Asia, you had not only telephone monopolies, but you had post, telegraph, and telephone monopolies all in the same state-owned entity. So you had a very stagnant and very entrenched and very hierarchically controlled institutional framework. And in the 1980s, starting in the US, then spreading to the UK, Japan, and Europe, and Hong Kong, we started breaking up these monopolies. We started privatizing state-owned PTTs. We separated the telecom aspect from the postal systems. We introduced competition in long-distance networks, in terminal equipment. And then we started globalizing liberalization. We started creating trade agreements in information technology, equipment, and in services. Now, most of you may not know this, but embedded in American telecom policy at the time the internet came along was something called the separation of information services from telecommunications. They were considered completely different things. The telecom was the platform, the physical layer on which the internet ran, and the information services was deregulated and open, whereas telecom was considered a common carrier, regulated and semi-monopolistic. So we said, we want the information services to be competitive and open, And in order to do that, we have to keep it as far away from those telephone monopolies as possible. And in order to execute that policy globally, we created this business about value-added services and information services, and we spread the liberalization of these information services worldwide, and that's what allowed the internet to happen in many places around the world.
Professor, I have one question.
Yes?
So what's the stable
Host telephone telecom. Okay, so you've got telecom liberalization, you have the internet protocols developing as a kind of a research network, and then about 1991 to the mid-1990s, the internet becomes what you might consider to be a mass medium. I love this picture because this guy looks so late 80s. You see that nice computer screen there? It looks very, probably an Epson, you know. But what really made the internet take off, how many of you know what sort of pushed it over the edge from being a limited technical academic research tool to becoming a mass medium?
World Wide Web.
Exactly, the World Wide Web, and particularly the browser for the World Wide Web. So the browser, and of course the first one was Netscape, which isn't even represented here because I couldn't find a picture of it anymore, but Netscape made it user-friendly. You could access all these resources. You had a free piece of software this was a new idea at the time. You're giving away software. You just went and downloaded it for free. And so suddenly there was mass acceptance of the internet. And what did that produce? Well, basically, that changed the equation of who did the governing very, very quickly, because it introduced a number of changes. The U.S. privatized the internet backbone starting in 1995. We allowed charging for domain names. We used to give them away for free. Suddenly we're charging. The Internet Society in the mid-1990s, this will come as news to some of you. The Internet Society loved the ITU so much that they tried to self-privatize the internet with a partnership with the ITU. Now, of course, if you're familiar, you would think that the internet people and the ITU people hate each other. They try to keep us far away from each other. But in this period, when the internet became popular, the Internet Society, the ITU, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and the International Trademark Association took the initiative and tried to say, hey, we'll create a little version of what turned out to be ICANN. We'll take control of this and we'll govern it according to our own rules. And the US government basically said, no, sorry, you're not going to do that. And so the US government asserted control and set in motion the process to create ICANN in 1997 and 1998. Now, what was driving this change? Well, basically, it was domain name trademark conflicts. And you see a number of major policy issues happening around domain names in the mid-1990s that go from second-level conflicts to the top level, to the root. So the first thing that happened was you had conflicts with trademarks. So you're a guy named Joe Miller, right? And you go and you apply for a domain in 1994, and you get it for free, Miller.com. And then suddenly the internet is a big thing, and the Miller Beer Company goes out and says, we have to have our home page on the web, let's get Miller.com. And they discover that it's owned by some guy, Joe Miller, in Idaho. And they're like, what? They're violating our trademark. Well, no, they're not. It's his name. Okay, so they've got to buy it from him, right? So people figure out you can sell these things, and then some people go out and they start registering lots of trademark names, and they do name speculation.
Trolls.
Yes. So there was also conflicts over country names. South Africa was extremely mad about the fact that somebody had registered SouthAfrica.com In fact, they registered a bunch of country names, and they were running trying to run an internet travel agency. And so you would go to southafrica.com and you'd see advertisements for, tours of South Africa. And the South African government was convinced that they were losing out on millions of dollars, and they said, this has got to stop. There were also conflicts over personal names. At the time, BritneySpears.com, that was a popular star. Many of you have ever heard of Britney Spears anymore, but you can imagine, anybody could just go and register these names. So you have a lot of conflicts over rights, over who has a right to a name. Now, suddenly, because people were making money selling domain name registrations, then people said, hey, this .com registry is a monopoly. Why can't I enter this market and compete with them? So that raised a number of policy issues. Like, okay, let's suppose we agree with you that there should be a new top-level domain. Who makes that decision? How many should there be? There were literally about 250 proposed names in 1996. People who wanted to get into the root and offer new top-level domains. What should they be? Who do we give them to? Do we just give them away and they're theirs forever, or do we make them renew them and pay us money? At this stage of the game, somebody actually came to John Postel, said, I think we've agreed now that you're going to give me a new top-level domain, and here's a check for $5,000. And that guy says John Postel agreed that was going to be the case, but then sent him the check back after a week because somebody else had prevailed upon him to not do that. So you can understand we're in a no man's land here. There's no rules. There's no understanding of how this gets solved. And then there were country codes. Suddenly countries, national governments, are paying attention to the internet. Now, in the early days, John Postel just gave country codes to whatever computer scientist he knew in a country who was capable of running it. And the government had very little to do with it in most cases. They weren't even aware of it. Suddenly, the internet is a big thing, and it looks like it's making lots of money, and suddenly governments are interested. Isn't that interesting how governments get interested when money and power is at stake? So, suddenly he had to deal with national government sovereignty claims over these top-level domains. And then that all led back up to the root. Who's going to administer the root? Who controls the root? Whoever controls the root gets to decide what new top-level domains exist. And if we do have this person with the authority to do that, how do we keep them accountable? Do we elect them? Do we appoint them? If we appoint them, who appoints them? They've got no power vacuum, right? So that is sort of what led to the formation of ICANN by the US government. The US government said, there's kind of a problem developing here. We need a new institutional framework. We're going to create one. And their original instinct, of course, was to handle it as a national policy issue through a green paper in which the department said, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to create 6 new top-level domains. We think we're going to provide a framework for solving these policy problems. And then, to its credit, the Internet Society said, and many people aligned with it, many people around the world involved in the Internet said, you can't have the US government doing this. This is a global infrastructure. We need a different model, a different approach. And so we got a new governance model. We got a privatization of the governance function. We decided to handle governance not through intergovernmental treaties or through national law, but through private multinational contracts. We would govern top-level domains through contracts with ICANN. We would accredit registrars through contracts with ICANN. We would try, they tried at first, to govern country codes through contracts with ICANN. Now eventually they revolted and said, no, we're not going to sign contracts with ICANN, but they wanted to. And then the IANA functions were tying ICANN to the US government. Now, as we were creating this, and I was there, as was in some of these early meetings, the question of accountability came up again and again. It was like, who makes these people responsible? You can't really see much of this organization chart, but this was an organization chart created by a critic of ICANN in the early days, about 1999. He called it the ICANN GAC organization because he was very surprised and alarmed at the growth of the GAC at that time. Many people were afraid that the governments would take over ICANN through the GAC. And essentially the point he was making is that we had gone from basically a one-man operation, John Postel handing out things and some IETF people around him, to this elaborate bureaucratic structure. Now remember the question of accountability. Many people in the early days of ICANN said, wow, this is a fantastic opportunity to create new governance forms. We can have effectively a globally democratic system of governance. And indeed, these people actually successfully prevailed upon the Commerce Department to say that ICANN would be a membership organization. And the members would elect half of the board. So there are lots of interesting issues about how to create a membership. And ICANN spent a couple of years basically deciding how to do that. And one reason that ICANN, the corporation, did not like the idea of membership was that under California law, members had very specific rights to do certain kinds of demands upon ICANN and to file certain kinds of lawsuits. So in order to protect the corporation from these lawsuits, the initial board of ICANN really strongly resisted the idea of having members at all. So we had a battle over membership, and it was kind of a halfway won battle in the sense that we decided to have an election with members in 2000, and they would elect 5 of the board members, not half of them, 1 per region. And what do you know, in North America, Europe, and what was the other one? Well, I think I should say 2 critics. In North America and Europe, the people who were critical of ICANN won the election, which made certain people in ICANN very uncomfortable indeed. In Asia and in Latin America and Africa, you had kind of mainstream internet technical people being elected. So in 2002, ICANN abolished those elections and replaced it with the At-Large Advisory Committee and RAILOs, and it took them another 2 or 3 years to create RAILOs that would be functioning. And that was how they moved from membership with a vote to this sort of advisory relationship in which people participate in ICANN, purporting to represent the individual internet user.
When you say elected by whom?
Well, then by members originally. But do you mean the At-Large Advisory Committee? So so you have a much more elaborate system now where you form an at-large structure. Some of you may know this, you may be at-large structures. And then those at-large structures join a RAILO, a regional at-large organization, and the regional at-larges elect members of this advisory committee. So you have a very indirect relationship between these individual internet users and the board, whereas with membership, it was like you were a shareholder in a corporation. You voted directly for the board members with your individual vote. So how does ICANN affect the internet? We have a number of policy issues. Let's say one of the most fundamental is freedom of expression. Who has a right to a name? What kind of names will be allowed? What kind of names will be prohibited? This is an act of regulation of speech. No way around it. Furthermore, you can use a domain name to indirectly regulate content. For example, you can say, you have been violating intellectual property copyright laws by posting Star Wars movies on your site. I'm going to take away your domain name. Your domain name is not illegal. Your domain name is not infringing a trademark or copyright, but the content of your website might be. So there's a lot of pressure on ICANN from intellectual property interests to leverage the domain name to regulate other things. Competition policy. Who gets to enter the domain name market? How much competition is there? As you know, ICANN basically suppressed competition for the first 10 years of its existence. There was a big debate, should we have more top-level domains? Some people were very much against it, especially the trademark people who just saw top-level domains as trouble for them. And other people, especially the industry, who wanted more opportunities to enter the market, said we need more domain names. But we kind of settled that issue, right? We've now got almost 2,000 new top-level domains. After suppressing the market, then they said, well, okay, we'll just open it up. And of course, many, many hundreds of people applied to have new top-level domains. But they have a lot of control over the market structure through their contracts. I'll talk about that a bit more later. And there's also issues of user privacy and data protection, because ICANN controls the policies related to how you register a name and what information about your registration will be made public and what will be held private. And we're having a big debate about that now. Even after 17 years of ICANN, we are still debating that issue. Let's go to ICANN more as the economic regulator. So understanding the mechanisms it uses. Fundamentally, they are registry contracts. They set the price, or they can set the price. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. For example, the price of .com is regulated. The price of most new top-level domains is not. There are lists of reserved names. There's vertical separation of the registry and registrar. There's a policy that might allow vertical integration. These are classic economic policy issues that are resolved by ICANN. Registrar accreditation. This is where the registrars are contractually committed to resolve domain name disputes through the UDRP, the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy, and they also deal with some consumer protection issues. For example, if a registrar treats you badly, steals your name, doesn't provide a name after you paid for it, ICANN can withdraw their accreditation and basically kick them out of the industry. Domain name dispute resolution, we've talked about that a bit, and WHOIS requirements. Okay, so now, in terms of the historical development of ICANN, something very important started to happen about 2002, and that was the World Summit on the Information Society. Now, essentially, the World Summit, which we call WSIS, or that's the acronym, I'm trying to pronounce an acronym, was essentially the world's governments sort of waking up to the fact that this new governance model had been created, and they weren't really part of it. That the whole governance of this part of the internet had been delegated by the US government to a private corporation that was under contractual control to the US government. And many governments did not like this, either because they were conservative and didn't like the new model, or they were not so conservative, but they didn't like the fact that the US government was in control, or both of the above. Now, at the same time as the governments are kind of objecting to ICANN for a conservative reason, civil society groups are entering the World Summit with a completely different motivation. They're saying, remember, this is like around 2000, remember all the debates about globalization and international organizations that are going on there. The civil society groups are saying, these international institutions have a democratic deficit. They don't represent ordinary people. They don't represent the people. They just represent governments and big business. So they're trying to break into these international processes.
Do you like to use the word conservative? I thought other governments have a different view.
Okay.
Is the word conservative necessary there?
What view was it?
Is the word conservative? as you are talking. Is it necessary?
Is it necessary?
Yes, other governments have a different view. What is conservative so much in that?
Well, conservative in my mind means they want the traditional form of governance, which is based on nation states negotiating with each other in exclusive forums. So, yeah, maybe you don't like the word conservative. Maybe I should say traditional. How's that?
That's better.
That's better. What's wrong with being conservative?
I don't know. I didn't answer it for clarification.
Okay, good. All right. But that's the kind of question I want you all to jump up and ask if you have. That's good. Okay, so you got two conflicting forces going on in the World Summit. You've got civil society groups saying, open it up to non-state actors. And you have states saying, close it down to more state actors only, or at least assert the control of state actors over ICANN. And everybody agrees, civil society and governments, what the heck is the U.S. government doing in control of all of this? Why is the U.S. government in this special position? So the first thing that they agree to do as part of the World Summit is to say, hey, this is a very complicated issue. A lot of people don't understand it, so they created the Working Group on Internet Governance, or the WIGIG, to define Internet governance and identify the public policy issues that might come along. And they did. They came up with the definition, which you probably will be hearing repeatedly throughout this school. And they came up with kind of a compromise position. They accepted the multi-stakeholder position, but they said different stakeholders have different roles. Government should be in charge of public policy, that's their role. Business should do operations, and civil society should, it wasn't clear what they wanted civil society to do, but they said it was very important. I'm being sarcastic, yes. All right, so that's kind of where things stood up until about, well, let's say up until about the Snowden revelations. We had a long-standing tension between the nation-state principle and the private sector-based or multi-stakeholder principle of governance. And we had an ongoing controversy about the accountability of ICANN. So now let's talk about principles for a little bit. What does the word principles mean to you in this context?
Basic rules.
Rules and
Basic what?
Basic rules.
Basic rules, okay.
objectives.
Objectives.
Ethics.
Ethics, okay, wow. So we have no idea what we mean by principles. So I'll tell you what it means in international relations theory. So in international relations, we talk about international regimes, which are the institutions that we use to do international or global governance. And there's a theory about these called regime theory. And they say regimes are shared principles, norms, rules, and decision-making procedures around which actor expectations converge. Now this is very fundamental because, of course, in the international arena, we fundamentally have anarchy. No government controls any other government. So whatever they do, they have to do in a cooperative manner. And in fact, we don't have anarchy internationally in the sense of chaos, because we do have all kinds of cooperative treaties and arrangements, right? So for governments to agree, regime theory says they have to agree on these things in that order. And in this scheme, principles means the basic statements of fact and rectitude upon which the regime is based. So what are, these are what we mean by principles in regime theory, basic definitions and statements of fact. So for example, in a climate regime, a basic principle might be that human activity is actually changing the climate. If you don't accept that, then you're not going to believe that we should have a regime to deal with it, right? If you think that it's just happening naturally, right? So before you can have an agreement on a cooperative regime to deal with climate change, you have to agree on certain fundamental principles or things that are true. And that's what we mean by principles. So what are principles in internet governance? First, multi-stakeholder governance is necessary. Why? Why do you think it's necessary? That's a good question. Let me ask you first. I'll tell you later why I think it's necessary, but first you tell me why you think it's necessary. I'm not saying it's good, I'm saying here that it's necessary. Why is it necessary?
We need different points of view.
That's true, but why can't you get those from different governments interacting in a normal, traditional, but not conservative way?
Because internet engage many parties, and so we want every party have their interest and voice covered.
Responsibility.
Again, but that's true, and that is one of the classic justifications of multi-stakeholders, but why can't those different interests and views be represented through states?
It would be biased.
Because states only influence what's most important interest that represents the state.
Okay, so states only represent their own interests as an institution. There was a hand back
Yeah,
there.
that was essentially.
That's what you're going to say, okay.
States may not necessarily represent the concerns of general population.
Okay, the states may not actually represent the whole population. They might have their own bias.
The whole idea of belonging to a state, some actors do not really identify themselves as belonging to the state.
Okay, we got two guys over here.
Sometimes the mass population or the representative from the civil society knows better than the government.
Okay, there's a knowledge gap. Maybe the government doesn't know as much about how the internet works as, let's say, the university network administrators. Yeah.
You mentioned internet as a software, but the physical infrastructure is built by the private players. So they have an important role to have their view.
Okay. All right, I think we pretty much got it. There's one thing that you've missed, and we're running out of time, so I need to move on. And that is the governments are fragmented. Okay, the governments are divided up into different territories, and the internet is supposed to work globally, right? So governments are not going to be very good at representing the interest that you might have or that the whole system might have global compatibility. Second principle, the internet is based on open and non-proprietary standards. This is a fact, but it's a very important fact. And probably some people have heard, you've heard them say the internet is a commons. The internet is not a commons. There's a private, somebody just said, the networks are private. And they're all different. What's common are the standards, the protocols. That's where the commons is. So it's important to understand that. The end-to-end principle. The design of the internet is based on the idea that the network merely forwards packets, and the applications, the intelligence is on the edges. And that means, that's a technical principle, it's part of the design of the internet, but it has governance implications. It means users have more control, and the network operators or the governments who might co-opt them have less control. So you can basically attach anything you want to the internet and it will run. And if somebody at the other side of that connection is doing the same thing, then you can run an application. So some people call this permissionless innovation. It's like, I've got global connectivity. If I put up a website that sells things or that does certain applications, and you go to that website and download whatever software you need to make that work, it happens. It doesn't mean the governments can't interfere with that if they want to, and they do, of course, but the default value is that they can innovate without permission. You can do things without prior permission. The end-to-end principle is related to, but not quite the same as net neutrality. And that net neutrality is such a can of worms that I'm not going to get into it here. But fundamentally, it means, users control what applications, services, and content they access, and And some people define that as net neutrality. So here's another fact, another principle. The internet, the internet is composed of private networks. Independently managed networks. They are private goods, not public goods. They interact and create this global commons through these open standards and protocols, but the networks themselves are under private management. And that means that much of the governance of the internet can be and is delegated to different units, the autonomous systems that make up the internet as a whole. And here's another principle. You probably already understand this based on what's already been said, that global compatibility requires coordinated resource assignment. So these are principles. These are like basic statements of what reality is that we have to accept before we can have a global governance regime for the internet. Now we'll move to norms. Norms are what some of you thought principles were. Norms are things that you should do or that we think we should do, the good things that we want. So what's some norms? Well, you can come up with norms all day, but I've tried to give you some basic ones that would not be, well, maybe that third one is controversial, but these are some norms. Most people who are in favor of the internet think that the technical model should be preserved, that we shouldn't do away with the end-to-end principle, that we shouldn't do away with open non-proprietary standards. That's a norm, that's a should, not an is. Here's another norm, one that I believe very strongly, but is actually very controversial in practice, and that is the coordination function should not be loaded up with too many policy functions. In other words, the fact that you're coordinating addresses and you're giving out unique addresses could be utilized or leveraged to try to control people in a policy way. And my norm is that the global compatibility and functioning of the internet is more important than whatever policy you might want to impose on people through that. You should impose your policies through different mechanisms, not through the technical mechanism. Again, you can accept or reject that norm, but understand that it's a norm. And then another one, the individual human right to receive and impart information outweighs national sovereignty. So again, that's a very controversial norm. Some people would agree, some people would disagree. But this is the kind of normative debate that we would have over a regime. So that's the end of my slide set. I will open it up maybe for a few general questions. Otherwise,
I feel like asking.